All right, everybody. What's up, GA scumbags? It's Noah and Eli here this evening. Tyler's not with us today, a little busy, so it'll be us manning the helm. Duke and Miami last week, Duke and NC State this week. Got a lot to talk about. I know that Duke State game means a lot to guys like me and Eli. But Eli was in Miami last weekend. We'll go ahead and Eli, tell us a little bit about Dade County, how the game was for you, what you saw in person.
Yeah, no, I mean the game, it sucks that we lost, but it was fun overall. Miami, my first time being down there, it's pretty much exactly what I expected. Anything like any thoughts I had about Miami, like it was to a T. It was spot on. It was gorgeous. It was a lot of fun. Game day, kind of rainy. Some hostile fans booing us on our way to the tailgate, but nothing too crazy going on. Got into the stadium, there were some fans talking shit, jawing at us and, like making gestures towards the Duke section, but no big deal. As far as the game goes, and we'll get more into it, like we'll break down the stats and everything, but as far as the game went, in the beginning, the first quarter didn't look like Duke was gonna do a whole lot. They got kind of, Miami got onto that fast start. Duke was able to, come back, get up at 11 at one point in the third quarter, which I couldn't believe was happening. I was cautiously optimistic. I was like, all right, can we possibly run away with this? But I'm not gonna smile until it's over. Didn't have to smile because Miami ended up running away with it. But yeah, the game, it was fun. It's a disappointing loss, but I think the SMU loss is gonna stick with me longer than the Miami one for sure.
Yeah, so Duke right now we're sitting at 6-3. At this point in the season, preseason, if you ask people what they thought Duke's record would be at its best through this part of the season, I believe 6-3 is probably what people would have said.
Yeah,
Except,
like
well,
best case.
yeah, absolutely like peak. And then one of those losses would have been to FSU, preseason hype type stuff. So Duke 6-3. We've left two games on the field, SMU and Georgia Tech. Both those games were lost. Georgia Tech more so than SMU due to the offense's inability to move the football, to score. SMU, Malik lit it up, really was let down by special teams play, which has been piss poor for a few weeks now after being a highlight. Like the first few weeks, man, like we were pretty sold on like the punt game, the field goal game,
Yeah.
like our punter, like everything was good. And that's kind of really flipped the switch. So after the SMU game, Miami and Florida State preseason, we thought we would lose those. I think most people would have predicted us to lose to Georgia Tech or SMU, not both. But so 6-3 is not an awful place to be sitting. But the fact that we're 2-3 in conference is kind of like a kick in the nuts because teams like Virginia Tech and some other teams that aren't bowl eligible have the same record as Duke in conference, which just kind of shows that, like, thank God for the four games we played at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And not to harp on Miami too much, but we'll get into some stats and stuff. But one thing I want to point out, TV perspective,
Yeah, let's get your thoughts from the TV point of view.
the offense had a lot better of a pace and a flow to it. I felt like our offensive line did not do well in the run department, but we were down Pickett, Craycraft, down some guys that might not be huge studs, but they are starters, and that does make a difference. We had Micah Sahakian filling in. Felt like he did a really good job in pass pro, just wasn't a great
Yeah.
run blocker. Duke couldn't run the ball too much, which I think put Brewer in a position early to have to really like dig in, or else it was looking like a 56-10 kind of ball game. And a lot of those pass concepts, motions, I liked a lot of the pre-snap motion, completely flipping the looks on them, coming out in one look, obviously right before the play, switching everything up.
Oh, that was awesome.
Think that really kept Miami on their heels. And like, if that's the case the rest of the year and stuff, like I'm here for a year or two. But if like that was a fluke, just and so happened to be a bit against the best team we'll play all year, it's like, man, we got to see that consistently throughout the year.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like going off of what you were just saying, like as far as the running game, yeah, kind of not great. Like if you look at the stats, like some let's see. Peyton Jones had a pretty respectable day, like nothing great, nothing terrible. 12 carries for 71 yards, averaging 5.9 yards a carry. Again, Peyton Jones averaging 5+ yards per carry all
Death
season.
Axis and Peyton Jones, baby.
Yeah, Peyton Jones gets 5 yards a carry, and he scored a touchdown with his longest rush of the day was 27 yards. Not bad. Star Thomas was, I mean, he was neutral. He wasn't great, wasn't bad. I mean, like 12 rushes for 25 yards, not great. His longest run was 7. Outside of that, and for the Duke Football Talk Facebook group, folks who don't understand how football works, Malik Murphy had 2 carries for negative 11 yards. Because in their minds, the people in that Facebook group thinks that a sack means the same thing as a rush for negative yards. It's not. Uh, but the passing game, I mean, again, like the rushing game wasn't great, wasn't terrible, wasn't great. But I could be wrong here, but like Miami has like a top 10 rushing defense.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna be that way for most teams they play this year.
Yeah.
It's not a knock on Duke's running backs. What we're saying right now, like Miami just does have that kind of rush defense.
Right. And given that, their rushing defense plus, we don't have like elite talent in the backfield, but we have solid talent in the backfield. But like with Miami's stout run defense and, the fact that our offense has kind of struggled with run blocking all year, I think this rushing performance overall is about what we expected. But you want to get into the passing stats real quick?
Yeah, you can go ahead run through the stats. I'll bring it up first. Just want to get into a lot of things we've heard. A lot of people the turnovers from Saturday, the interceptions. First one terrible. Just had nothing but one read. The whole play was nothing but a play action shot. Miami knew that that's what Duke was going to do on that drive, and they doubled that safety over there every time until they got that pick.
And see, we're a we're a very pro Malik Murphy podcast over here. But we can admit when he
Yeah,
just makes a
like
straight
I'll
mistake.
always admit his shortcomings, but I'll never stand for anybody saying that Bellin or Loftus should be a starter over
Yeah.
him because like you just haven't watched Duke football in the last 15 years. Because and like I said this in the group chat, and like it actually got more of like an acceptance than like I was expecting. Daniel Jones turned the ball over at Duke in his 3 seasons more than any quarterback at Duke besides like Zach Asack. You know what I mean? Like, love him to death. Does amazing things for Duke football publicity wise with his NFL life and stuff. But it's like, man, a lot of people are seeing like Murphy throw these interceptions and they're forgetting that Daniel Jones threw 5 interceptions in one game and almost, I think he did that twice, and he had 3 picks and 4 picks in games multiple times as well.
Mm.
Malik had one bad rip-off game against Miami. The rest of the season, a lot of that you can chalk it up to being a guy that's going to throw 2 or 3 touchdowns and have an interception with that number. And like, a lot of people are wanting to rip him for Miami. It's a one-off. He literally kind of brought us back to take the lead with very good passing and play calling. And then once it fell apart and we were behind again, and all we had to do was throw it downfield, like the turnovers are going to pile up in that scenario.
Yeah, and going off of that, what's funny is SMU and Miami were Malik's 2 best performances as a Blue Devil, and I don't think I've seen him get ripped on more this season outside of these 2 weeks. It seems like the better he plays, the more pissed off like the non-ball knowers get.
The
I mean,
old guard.
yeah, the old guard. I mean, last week against SMU, he was like 295 yards with 3 TDs and no picks. This game, he was 25 of 41, 325 yards, 3 TDs, 3 interceptions. I believe one of those like wasn't even really his fault though. Like wasn't one like tipped or something
The
or
second,
bounced off someone.
I think it was that one, like right towards the end of the third quarter when it kind of started falling apart. It was the tip off like Q Sean's hands or something like that.
Yeah.
And then the last one was kind of like the first, they're down by 20. He was just point, just fucking flinging the football all over the place.
Yeah, and going off of that one, speaking of ripping on people, we've been ripping on Jonathan Brewer pretty much all season. But I'm man enough to admit his play calling against Miami, like after the first couple series, looked pretty damn good.
Just dialed up in the red zone. Like the
Yeah, and there was a
red
little bit of
zone plays
flash.
nuts.
Yeah, and there were flashes of that against SMU, and he even said it. He was like, there were moments in the SMU game where, the offense was looking like we've wanted them to look all season. Um, and so yeah, I'll give my flowers where they're due. I think Jonathan Brewer, for the most part, was calling a very good game. Like, what was it, like a fourth down on the like near the goal line, and they had that pass. And Section 17 said the same thing earlier. That play reminded me of that one play against Notre Dame last year at the goal line, where they
Yep.
kind of went like this, and the receivers all switched sides, and they had the
And
guy
damn
wide
near
open.
every route was open. I think Miami
Yeah,
had one of the four receivers covered, and they fucking doubled him. So like
yeah,
Samir was open, Jomo was open, and then I think it was Peyton Jones was on like a wheel route off the backside that just nobody knew where he was.
yeah. Again, I mean, there were shortcomings on the offense for sure, but honestly, I was feeling pretty damn good about the offensive play and the play calling for a while. And speaking of some of the receivers, Samir Hagan's legacy game. What can you say? That's like Samir Hagan's third legacy game this season.
Boy, if he played for Alabama, they would have posted that game like those stats on Twitter. Like
Oh, they'd still be on Sports Center,
he
yeah.
would be getting a helmet sticker. Like holy hell! And
I
how
mean,
about
look,
Chandler Rivers getting the You Got Mossed award?
how about that?
So
Dude,
he's getting
football's
a
on the
pair.
rise.
Yeah, he got the number one. So Randy mailed him that pair of gloves. I was like, that's sick, man. Chandler deserves that.
That's awesome. But yeah, like the receiving, I mean, Samir just popped off. 9 receptions, 139 yards, averaging 15.4 yards per reception. Dog.
Dog.
One receiving TD. Jordan Moore, not bad, not great. I mean, 5 receptions for 75 yards. That's still 15 yards of reception, with a TD as well. Peyton Jones getting involved in the passing game
Hey,
too.
Jones.
He does it all, baby. 3 receptions, 61 yards, 20 yards per reception with a receiving TD. Eli Pankel didn't have his best day, but he certainly didn't lose us the game. I'll say that. John Tavis Robertson made uh, an appearance. That was nice.
Spring game legend, John David
Yeah.
Robertson.
Yeah. We've got our buddy Chandler before the season said that we had 6 different receivers on our team who could all go for 1,000 yards this season. It hasn't quite come true, but it's become kind of a running joke.
Javon Harvey's not even going to get to 150 on the year.
Oh man, but yeah, I mean, overall the offense looked really stout. I mean, the fact that this was an offense that barely scraped out 26 points against like Elon and Northwestern and now put up 31 against one of the best defenses in the country, like a top 5 team. I mean, the progression, like the proof is in the pudding. This team is on the rise. I mean, if they
Yeah,
could have that kind of performance against Miami, I have full faith they can at least win 3 of the next 4.
yeah, I just see no world where Duke ends the year worse than 8-4 this year. Looking at who they got left, State, VT, Wake Forest. It's like, man, you shouldn't drop a game to Wake. That should at least you shouldn't lose to State this week either, which we're going to get into. And really, VT just got boat raced by Syracuse at home last week. Like, I'm not impressed, by we're better than all three of those teams on paper. Like on the field, we're a better program right now. They're 100%.
I agree. And just real quick, we'll touch on the defensive side of things. I mean, Ozzie Nicholas, I mean, that this dude has become one of my favorite
All
players
timer.
on. Yeah, dude, he's gonna be one of those dudes that we talk about like years from now, like Ozzie Nicholas, dog.
Yeah, he talked to
Um,
grandkids about some dude that went to Cornell for 4 years, played for Duke for one, and then got a job for Lockheed Martin for the next 5. Like no, he's just a dog though, man. It's a guy
dude
you
just
want to
dude just looks like a linebacker too, like number 45 with the eye black and the arm
man,
braces. I
bro,
mean, yeah,
shit.
dude, he just looks like a linebacker. 10
Yeah.
total tackles, 3 solo. I mean, let's see, Terry Moore with 9 tackles, 7 solo. Cam Bergeron, 6 tackles, 2 solo. Deshaun Stone, 4 total tackles, and they're all solo. Look at that.
Oh,
Yeah, Chandler Rivers, 4 tackles, 3 solo with a tackle for loss. I mean, yeah, I mean, our dudes were looking pretty solid. I mean, Trey Freeman, 1 tackle. He had 1 pass deflected though, which is pretty solid. But I mean,
boom.
yeah, yeah,
Trey Freeman did not bring the boom this week.
yeah. It's all
That's
right.
a
He's
new
done enough.
award we're gonna give out. Who brought the boom? It's like it's not Trey Freeman.
Still loving the death. Trey's still our guy. Don't get me wrong.
100%. We just need more from you, Trey. We're begging for it. Go take somebody's fucking head off against State this
Yeah,
week. I
he's
mean,
gonna,
get thrown out of the game, dude. We
dude.
can we can go for a half.
Yeah, he's gonna get it back in blood against State.
I need it,
He's gonna pop he's gonna pop Jordan Waters' helmet off this weekend.
dude. I hope somebody takes old KC Concepcion and puts him up in the grandstands. Absolute sport ender incoming in Raleigh this week.
Yeah, it's the one where like they're talking about it, like it makes like CNN headlines.
It's like all world news tonight. It's
Oh
calling
my
football
God.
too dangerous.
Yeah, we paused we paused this election news to talk about Duke versus NC State, this controversial play. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think we touched on all the notables from offense. I mean,
One thing on defense I'd like to mention, I put out on the thing since we didn't get to record last week, like a scumbags like keys to the game before. And one thing I put was our defensive ends had to play no deeper than 2 to 3 yards downfield, like upfield, to contain Cam Ward. And they contained Cam Ward better than anybody has all year. Like he didn't go out and scramble for 120 yards. He extended plays, but he was never like
like
not
out
being
on the perimeter, yeah.
exactly. And like VJ and West, like man, they lock those edges down. They keep doing that all year against lesser competition. We're just gonna eat these dudes alive.
Yeah, agreed. And speaking on the defense, the last thing I'll say, and our good friend Bobby pointed out, he was like, I mean, the defense just got worn down. I mean, it was hot, it was sunny, and the way Hard Rock Stadium is set up, it's set up like a lot of stadiums where the opposing bench is angled where the sun is in their face. I mean, they had the canopies, they had the fans, but those can only do so much. It was still hot in there. It was noisy. It started getting worn down, especially like the second half when the towards the end when the offense really couldn't stay on the field. With a couple of picks and a bunch of three and outs, the defense just got worn down. The defense was in it until they weren't,
It was
basically.
very Duke Florida State esque of last year, man. The defense did a lot. The offense kind of came back and took a lead, and then the defense just couldn't hold no more.
Right. They broke. But I wanted to kind of do like bring back a kind of our MVP of the offensive defensive side. I'll go first. I think my MVP on the offense, hands down, was Samir Hagens. I mean, just I was happy for him. I mean, we were screaming at him before the SMU game at the Blue Devil Walk. Samir Hagens legacy game.
Breakout game, Samir.
Yeah, dude, Samir Hagens legacy game. It's like the third one this season. Um, Defensive side of the ball. I mean, if you're just looking at pure production, I guess Ozzie Nicholas. I mean, just flying around making plays. Um, Chandler Rivers with that insane pick towards the end too.
Crazy play.
Yeah, I mean, who would you say for your MVPs? Would you say the same?
Offensively, I'm on the same page. Usually, you can find a couple of guys, but Samir really did the damn thing. But defensively, I'm going to go a duo and give it to VJ and Wes just for holding contain,
Yeah,
getting pressures, just doing their job every single play the way it's supposed to be done at defensive end.
yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, just holding the line basically. Um, well, let's see. So I wanted to get into the mailbag real quick. We'll dive in here. So up first, our friend Bobby Boom from Twitter, who's going to be the big spoon during the sleepover at Eli's Friday night. We were making a joke about because I live in the Triangle, so my place would be kind of the hub for the state meetup this weekend. I guess we'll all take turns being the big spoon.
Yeah, Jarrett probably won't give it up, but I think Jarrett might also get a little lonely and want to be a little spoon. Probably Garrett probably flip in there too.
Yeah,
Yeah, or he's leaving the wife at home.
and we're probably going to keep Garrett on the couch, but I could very well see the possibility of 1 a.m. hear that knock on my door, asking if he can come in the bedroom with us. So we'll see.
Vibes will be high in Raleigh this weekend, folks. Don't you worry.
For sure. Our buddy Duke Defender, y'all will be reading this after we found out who the president. Maybe elaborate on why it's Nina King. Oh, okay. I didn't know where he was going with that at first. We don't know who the president is going to be yet, but I did write in Nina King on my ballot.
Yeah,
So
I Nina King and Manny Diaz was my VP, and then Jordan Moore for state governor. Absolutely.
I actually wrote in Nina King on as the write-in for the local sanitation commissioner. So We'll see
Maybe
if
she
she gets
clean
that.
up Durham too.
Yeah, exactly.
She fixed Duke football. She can fix Durham, man.
Get the trash off the streets.
God, clean it up. But
Um,
yeah, I definitely think Nina would just absolutely be like I can't even like lie. I think she would just be like the greatest president ever. She would just get so much shit done. Like
mhm,
you just talk about a boss bitch that does boss bitch things, just
that's right.
queen.
Working
Just
across the aisle,
yeah.
bipartisan. The way she's elevating Duke football to be on par with Duke basketball in terms of like funding and respect. She's gonna work across the aisle. Our buddy Bentley Weeks, friend of the pod, and he
Big
has
Ben.
more drip than anybody. I mean, holy shit. You guys should have seen Bentley Weeks at the Duke SMU game a couple weeks ago. He was wearing an exact replica of the Duke starter jacket that Fred Goldsmith was wearing back in the 90s. Holy crap. Like, he was so dripped out. I was like, Bentley, come here. And I took a picture of him because he just looked so good.
He had
Maybe,
so much motion.
oh, we'll make that the thumbnail for the pod this week. He'll be like, what the hell?
100%. He's earned it.
But Bentley says, do you guys have a renewed sense of hope in this offense and play calling after the game on Saturday? I feel like the guys performed very well, and I did think the play calling was actually kind of good. I can't wait to beat State on Saturday. Go Duke. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, and even though we kind of touched on it earlier, but for me, I don't know if it's necessarily a lot of hope because like Duke football can't give you hope in a lot of things. I've seen so much. But one thing I will say is like I'm a little more confident that the rest of the games on the schedule, which we should win, we're gonna have a lot better chance to start winning those by like 10 or 14 points as opposed to winning them by like 3 to 6. So I'm amped up for it. I really think we can just pants NC State this week, and like I just need Malik to go out there and fling it for 375. Just fuck these boys up.
Yeah, I mean the same way that, Thad Lewis had his game, we call it the Thad Lewis game from '09 against NC State, and Raleigh was like 40 of 50 for like 450 yards, 5 TDs with a rushing TD. Like, what the hell?
Cut Clip said we're gonna throw this motherfucking football.
We're gonna fling the rock. Yeah, I nothing would make me happier than having a Malik Murphy legacy game against State this weekend. But yeah, going off of that, I do have a renewed sense of hope, honestly, not just from the Miami game, but from the SMU game. I mean, we're seeing this offense just gradually get better and better every week. Again, like we mentioned, right? Like barely scraping out 26 against Elon and Northwestern, and then having to play from behind late in the game against UConn, which, ugh, and then playing from behind against Carolina. I mean, and then elevating from that
Dude,
into
UConn's our best win right now. I don't know if you've kept up with the Huskies, but the old Huskies have the same record as the Duke Blue Devils. So,
goodness.
hey, man, UConn might be the shit.
But yeah, like from where they were in those 4 games compared to like being in a shootout with SMU and Miami for a time. Yeah, I mean, the offense is looking better and better every week. So I'm gaining more faith in the league. I'm gaining more faith in Brewers play calling. So yeah, absolutely a renewed sense of faith. Let's see. Next question. I lost it here. God. Let's see where we at. Sorry, I lost it, man.
No,
All
it's
right.
okay. They know how this pod works. It
Yeah.
don't work well. They're
Yeah,
just here for the
exactly.
good time
All right, our buddy Matthew Lofton 15 in Diaz I trust. Love that name by the way. Dude, this is a dude who's a Duke fan.
and
He's got he
hates state with his
love him.
whole life.
Love him. Well, he's your quintessential Duke athletics fan. He's got a basketball profile picture, but his screen name is in Diaz I trust. This is what all of us should aspire to be. His question is, can the defense do even better than last year and allow 0 plays in the red zone to the Woofies?
They're not that good. Again,
Who, State or Duke on defense?
state like it. I mean, they probably will just because that's such a fluke thing to happen. But like, I don't expect to see them score much. Maybe outside of some field goals.
Yeah, I mean, we hate State on this podcast, but I mean, speaking just objectively, State really does have the tendency to come out of the bye week hot. The State special is finishing up 8-4 with a bowl game loss and a win over Carolina. Um, we saw last year State got real hot in the second half and ended up finishing ranked. They were ranked at the end of last season, right?
Yeah, when they played in the Pop Tart, they were, and then when they lost it, they were taken out. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, State does tend to get hot later in the season, so we'll see. But again, I mean, I mean, again, Duke's defense was hanging with Miami. They hung with State or SMU. Like they've been lights out all season against other teams. So we'll see. I don't expect them to have no plays in the red zone, but I do expect a good defensive performance from Duke. And another question from actually who I think is a State fan actually he says he's a State grad, but he left a question. Duke has loved this season on turning turnovers into points, but with the emergence of CJ Bailey and his confidence, are there concerns of Duke's defense containing the dynamic NC State offense?
Calling it a dynamic offense is a bold choice just because they scored 50 something on Stanford. I can field a team of blind and deaf kids that would score 56 on Stanford right now. I mean, it's literally like playing Brown. Like they're turning themselves back into an Ivy League. Not impressed.
Yeah, this is not the Stanford of 15 years ago with Jim Harbaugh, like going toe to toe with, uh,
Anybody,
with Pete Carroll. Yeah, like this isn't the Christian McCaffrey Stanford that we're used to.
Andrew Luck, again,
Yeah.
all them dogs. But like another thing he says in there that just proves to me he doesn't know ball is that Duke scores points off of turnovers. No, they don't.
Uh, yeah, we don't.
Brother, we got
Non-ball knower.
6 of them and scored zero and lost the game in overtime. So you just, not to be a dick, but you're just kind of an idiot. But you know, appreciate the question, I guess. But we're boat racing.
He also had a second question in there. Also, can Duke perform well enough in their toughest environment to date?
It's not our toughest environment today. Atlanta is way tougher. Bobby Dodd is a tougher place to play than NC State every day of the week.
So I'll say NC State does have a good environment. Objectively speaking, they do have a good game day
Yeah.
environment. However, and I'm trying to rack my brain because the only state home game that I've been to in the last 10 years was against Western Carolina. The environment at a Western Carolina game is not going to be the same as an environment against Duke, right? Like against a conference opponent. So I don't know. I was at the Miami game this past weekend, and that environment was pretty tough, just given like the heat, the crowd noise, and engagement. And I know that State does have a very good home environment, but debatable whether that's going to be their toughest environment. We'll see.
Well, fans
Um,
don't win ball games, thank God, or else
yeah,
they
exactly.
beat it every year.
Oh, and actually, I was talking to our friend Ozzy and Nicholas today over Twitter, actually, and I asked him, I was like, hey, I was like, I've heard my whole life that teams will sometimes prepare with crowd noise coming through the speakers, just to get ready for hostile environments. Do you guys do that? And he's like, yeah, we actually did that today.
Mhm.
So we'll see. I mean, Duke is
Yeah, I
building
mean
for
it'll
it.
be loud. It'll
Yeah,
be absolutely. It's going to be a packed crowd. There's tickets left, but they're not by like the thousands. You know what I mean?
sure.
But Atlanta is genuinely a louder and tougher place to play.
Yeah, for sure.
We caught Georgia Tech when they still had a little bit of hope to their season. Now they're kind of like sitting there at 6-3. They don't really know if they're going to win nine or fucking go 6-6. So
Right. So yeah, that pretty much wraps up the mailbag. We wanted to introduce a new segment to you guys. For any of you guys have been Duke football fans for long enough, I think you guys will appreciate this. This is kind of something that started out as a running joke in our group chats, and I was like, you know what, we should turn that into a pod segment. So we're introducing a new segment called That's So Duke. And sometimes we're going to take a historical event that happened in a Duke game where it was kind of a weird, fluky thing that could only happen to Duke, like the Miami lateral game all those years ago. You would say, That's so Duke.
that's so Duke.
Over the weekend, we were joking. Somebody asked if a Duke player got drafted in the eighth round, and our friend Bobby was like, well, there's only 7 rounds. And I said, however, they would totally create an eighth round just to take a Duke player because that's so Duke.
That's just so Duke.
So my nomination for this play from this past weekend, and I think Noah, you might agree with me here, was the opening drive against Miami, when Cam Ward did Cam Ward things and was juking around the pocket and navigating and almost got sacked a couple times, didn't got out of coverage, launched it downfield, and I believe watching the replay, Jalen Stinson had the receiver in coverage but slipped and fell. And then the pass was intended for let's see. It was intended for his last name was George, but the Terry Moore tipped it, like tried to bat it away, but Restrepo ended up catching it for a touchdown. So they got a touchdown off a tip pass, and I was like, God, that is so Duke.
Yeah, that was just one of those moments where you just can't help but think like that would only happen to somebody like Duke or like Elon. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm gonna pull mine from the SMU game because the pod needs to share this lore. But it was also one of after the game, it was one of those just that's so Duke moments. Pre-game SMU Blue Devil walk. The boys are all standing there. We're screaming, cheering on the boys, and little old Todd Polino walks by. And, we always cheer them all on. But for some reason, like every single one of us just started losing it for Todd Polino, screaming, Big Rod Todd, let's fucking
Big
go.
Rod Todd.
A legacy game tonight, Todd. Who's Dallas Tech? And he smiles, like he turns in the video that Eli filmed, and he like looks at all of us and just smiling, like just probably made his day. And then he goes out and literally loses the football game for us. And I was like, of all the players we picked to talk to, like they were God, it's the one that lost the game for us. And that's just so Duke, man.
Well, now we know if we're gonna cheer on a player at the Blue Devil walk and potentially get in their head, we got to do it for the walk-ons only. That
Yeah.
way, there's no risk involved here.
See
Um,
pussy, see
yeah,
pussy.
yeah, yeah. Clayton and Burton walked past and we were also screaming, "See pussy!" However, I did scream at Samir. I screamed Samir Hagan's legacy game, and he ended up having a legacy game the next week. So, we'll probably try to keep that up. Uh, but now looking ahead to NC State, what can you say? We hate these boys. I've uh been raised in the triangle, never been a fan of NC State, and then ever since my fandom of Duke football's, amped up, just my hatred for state has just ramped up to obscene levels, just with beefing with their fans on Twitter and, just being surrounded by them constantly in Wake County, just not big fans of them. Uh, but anyway, Noah, I mean, looking at their games leading up to this point, it's kind of been a weird season for them. I mean, they started the season like in the preseason rankings, like there were high expectations from them, like they were supposed to be elite.
There always is.
Yeah, every year.
Nothing means more in Raleigh than preseason football, man.
Yeah,
And
that's
nothing
right.
means more. It's like the SEC over there. It just means more.
Right. And in the off season, we were hearing nothing but from their fans about how Grayson McCall was going to be a Heisman candidate, Jordan Waters
We took your
allegedly.
best player.
Yeah, they're like, we took Jordan Waters, your best player, even though he wasn't like top five best players at Duke last year. I'm like, hey, buddy, our best players got drafted, actually.
Yeah, it's like the 2-star recruit from bumfuck nowhere, North Carolina, that didn't really play much till his 5th year. It's like I ain't too impressed, you know. You
Yeah.
you can have that.
Yeah, so I was actually at their first game of the season. I was at the State versus Western Carolina game, and oh my God, I've never been a bigger Western Carolina fan than I was that night. I sat in their visitor section rooting for them all night. And dude, it was Western Carolina's game through like the third quarter. And then State was like, all right, well, we can't lose to an FCS opponent, so we got to step it up. State ended up beating WCU 38-21, got boat raced by Tennessee 51-10. I'm not going to hold that really against them. I mean, anybody in the ACC would,
Duke
really.
would have kept it closer than that. I will say. I think every team other than State would have scored more than 10 points that night.
State had a shootout with LA Tech or Louisiana Tech 30-20, got boat
And
raced.
LA Tech was ahead, like WCU, the
Uh,
whole fucking
Again, that
game.
was their game to lose for most of it. But next week they're going to get boat raced by Clemson. Week after that, another shootout with Northern Illinois, NIU. Then they lose to Wake Forest, and that's the game when Grayson McCall got murdered. Completely clean hit. I don't know
Wasn't
what
a
they're.
dirty hit.
Yeah, I don't know what their state fans are talking about. That was a clean hit. He should have slid.
Football play.
Yeah, football play.
You don't like it,
That's
don't play, boys. Stay at the fucking house.
yeah. Flag football 7-on-7 signups are across the street. Um, so Grayson McCall got retired that game. Basically, they lost to Syracuse 24-17 the next week. And then week after that, they were again in another shootout with a inferior opponent in Cal. I mean, again, that was Cal's game to lose until the end, until they pissed it away. Ended up winning that one against Cal 24-23. That was back at the last days of the Calgorithm.
Cal
Uh,
them RIP.
Actually, dude, I don't think I've seen I was seeing a ton of Calgorithm tweets like all season until that week.
They're
And then
dead now.
once they lost the state, I was like, ugh,
It's literally just like Hood Bear left, and he's got a state PFP because he lost a bet.
brutal. And then they go into the bye week, and then they boat race Stanford. But, impressive win for sure. But I mean, it's Stanford, right? Like, hanging 59-60 against a conference opponent, means a lot for sure. But I don't know how much weight this game really holds, considering that Stanford is basically 2005 Duke and that they're the shittiest team in the conference and they get boat raced by everybody.
Yeah,
That's the kind of game where you score as many points as you can, and that's what you call a stat padding game for the offense. I mean, if you look at Stanford, I mean, shit, dude, like this season, lost to TCU, beat Cal Poly, beat Syracuse somehow, and then just boat race by Clemson, boat race by Virginia Tech, boat race by Notre Dame, boat race by SMU, lost to Wake Forest, and then gets boat raced by NC State. So again, hanging 59 on Stanford isn't a whole lot there, right? But
yeah, I ain't impressed.
I will say, objectively speaking, I think that State is looking better ever since moving to CJ Bailey at quarterback. I think that he does have some playmaking abilities, and he kind of does give the offense a little bit more than Grayson McCall was giving him. I'll get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, just to kind of build off what you said. Of course, big important game for the fans from what we deal with on Twitter. Um, CJ Bailey's a pretty solid QB, young. He hasn't played a defense like ours. We're gonna force some mistakes. Their defense sucks really bad. Their linebacking core is the worst in the conference. D line is okay at best, and their secondary is just Swiss cheese. So like it really is the perfect storm for Duke to just go out there, let the defense get a good hot start early, let the offense get 21 up there before the first half ends, and just ride the train. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the defense, typically Dave Jordan's bread and butter is like a strong defense carrying an okay offense.
They're talking about firing Tony Gibson this year. That shit's been so bad. You know what I
Yeah, which is hilarious, by the way. Speaking of Tony Gibson,
mean? Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put this information out there for anybody who doesn't know or doesn't want to hear the truth. Tony Gibson interviewed for Duke's head coaching job this past offseason before Manny Diaz got the job. And word on the street from inside sources is that Tony Gibson has always wanted to be Duke's head coach.
Oh
Kind
yeah,
of been a dream of his before going to retirement. Looks like he's not going to be getting that.
never get.
Uh, and speaking of NC State people who wish they were at Duke, our boy Peyton Wilson grew up in Hillsboro. His family was season ticket holders for Duke football, and he always wanted to play for the Duke Blue Devils. So, I mean, State just wishes they were Duke. I mean, plain and simple,
The littlest bro forever and always.
littlest blow. I mean, Duke went through like 3 decades of dog shit,
We're
and they
still
still have the all-time wins against
I love
State.
how they try to flex that where they're like, oh, you're counting wins from when people of color couldn't play. It's like you guys are counting wins from when Duke literally didn't have a person of color on their team, like because of Ted Roof. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, like
we were the fattest, slowest, worst football team ever. You
yeah,
know?
you're counting wins from when like if you were a Duke football player and you went to the equipment manager and asked for a new jock strap, he would refer you to eBay to buy a used one for yourself because they weren't going to give you one for free, that kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
Duke football was a joke for 3 decades, and we'll admit that. And State still couldn't catch up on the all-time wins record. Uh, Duke has won 3 of the last 4 matchups after the dark ages. So
Recency bias.
yeah, if
They
they
want
want
to
to
pull
talk,
that hard.
yeah, if they want to talk recency, we'll talk recency.
You can only
Um,
talk recency when you include the time from like 1996 until 2009. They're like, oh, we got you like 12 times in that time frame. It's like, congrats, everyone did.
yeah,
single team did.
We were in shootouts with VMI, dude. Like it's not a big
Meredith
deal.
College beat us. You know what I mean? Like we got boat raced by Meredith, probably the women's
Yeah,
school.
exactly. But again, back to the Tony Gibson thing, and their, historically pretty solid defense. Duke's or State's offense has actually been like in terms of rankings, their offense has been ranked better than their defense this season. If we're talking like points per game, their offense is ranked 50th, and then their defense is ranked number 100. Yards per game, their offense is at 92, their defense is at 76. I'll give them that. Um, Points per play, I mean, their offense is at 30th in the nation, whereas their defense is ranked 104th. And then finally, yards per play, their offense is ranked at 58th and their defense is ranked at 81st. So, I mean, again, their offense, statistically speaking, has been better than their defense this season. Um, Now, I will say in the running game, their yards per rush is 3.7, which ranks 93rd in the country. And then their defensive yards per rush is ranked at 91st. So they're kind of hand in hand right there. But just getting off of the stats and just getting into more of a what we expect to see from this matchup this week, and I'll get your thoughts, Noah. What do you think?
Yeah, so like I've been saying most of the year,
Objectively speaking.
yeah, so most of I like I've been saying, I genuinely believe that this is probably going to be one of Duke's like bigger wins of the year. I don't think it's going to be competitive most of the game, and by competitive I mean I think Duke will keep it with around a 13 to 17 point lead most of the game. Maybe in the second half it'll open up more. State's defense is just so bad on the eye test. Like you just see so much when it comes to missed assignments, coverages being blown, linebackers not scraping over the top and filling the outside or filling B or C gap, just really committing to the inside. Their D line gets gassed early. Respect CJ Bailey. Think he's a great quarterback. They've got some decent talent with Concepcion, Noah Jolly, as well as Hollywood Smothers, the Oklahoma transfer. Jolly, of course, came from UConn. Concepcion's homegrown product. I don't think we have to worry about Jordan Waters. He don't see the field anymore. Dude, I mean, I hate it for him, but the grass ain't always greener.
He
And
had that one like 95, 97 yard TD run this past
yeah,
weekend.
but
But
it was a
again, that's like his stats are mostly bolstered by that run and then his garbage time performance against Western Carolina. Aside
and
from that, Jordan Waters hasn't really done much this season. But at
and
least at least he got a Camaro out of it, I guess.
yeah, 100%. And like I expect Malik to have a really good day, our receivers to have a really good day, and our running backs to have a really good day. And my final score prediction is 34-14. Duke got them winning by 20 in the end. A little late garbage time, shit on you touchdown from Manny Diaz because a lot of people don't remember Manny Diaz coached at NC State
He
before.
did way back in the day.
So back to back legacy games for Manny right here. He's got to get the dub on this one.
That's right. For me, I mean, just talking locker room, I think that a big question that people may have and a big concern that people may have is that like, you know, coming off of two like tough losses to SMU and Miami, people might be wondering, locker room wise, like morale wise, how is Duke going to hold up? Are they going to, you know, do what we call the Cutcliffe skid and, just tank in conference play and just, start out like 6-1 and finish like 7-5, right? I don't see that happening with this team. I think that Manny Diaz and him and David Feely, the strength and conditioning coach, are both excellent motivators and are both very good at keeping our guys, locked in and like level headed. And I think the fact that we saw a funny TikTok from Eli Penkel and Jordan Moore, two of our best receivers, just goofing around in the locker room as early as Monday, I think that's a good sign that shows, they're not too down in the dumps. And I think they're going to be level headed going into this weekend. Um, I think that Duke's offense is only looking better, and I think we're going to see hopefully their best performance of this season. I think we saw flashes of excellence against both SMU and Miami, and I think that they're going to continue to build off of that and look solid and stout against State. I think that Duke's defense is going to stay stout like they have all season, and hold State's offense at bay. So I mean, yeah, I mean your score prediction of 34-20. I could see that being, very attainable and very realistic. Um, as the outcome against State this weekend. Um, aside from that, is there anything else that we should cover?
Not really. I think that was a pretty gas episode. Sorry we haven't been super consistent for you guys with the hurricane and then with just work and a lot of shit going on. I think just throughout the group, a lot of travel and stuff. It's been hard. But we got things straight now. Everything's going to be coming back at you on a weekly basis. Appreciate you guys still following along on Twitter. We'll keep dropping as much as we can over there, get more edits, more TikToks, all that stuff out. But yeah,
Yeah.
thanks,
Uh,
scumbags, for sure. Happy election night, you folks. We endorse Nina King, so can't hate on us.
That's
Can't hate
right.
on these guys.
Also, before we go, one thing I wanted to touch on was injuries. I don't think we have any major injuries. I think that we've been hearing for the past month and a half. Oh, Nick Morris will be back any week now. He hasn't come back. I think what's happening is two things. One, I think Ozzy is balling out and busting his ass in practice to show that he earns that spot, and I think he has earned that spot. I think what the plan is going to be is to redshirt Nick Morris.
Mm-hmm.
Um, who else is there? Quez, I think similar deal with Jaquez Moore. I think that Star Thomas and Peyton Jones have shown that they can carry the load. I think the plan might be to redshirt Quez, considering that he probably could have come back a month ago and hasn't been back yet. The only injury that I can think of is Justin Pickett. I think he was injured versus SMU, and he was injured going into Miami, which is why Micah Sahakian played. So I think Justin Pickett is the only real injury to keep an eye on. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Outside of that,
See you this
yeah,
weekend.
this has been a gas pod. Yeah, come say hi to us at the game this weekend if you're there.
Yeah, we'll absolutely be there. We'll let everybody know what a location is, as we will not be doing the Iron Duke tailgate.
Yeah,
So
hard hat guys aren't tailgating this weekend, and the only official
it's
Duke
up to
tailgate
us.
is the hard hat ones. So the only official tailgate out there is the Iron Dukes one, which I don't intend to be at. So we'll let y'all know. But aside from that, let's go Duke.